episode 21 of the Forgotten Fields Project. All the gang is here. I'm Robin Reed.
I'm Tara Williamson.
I am Chuck Miller.
And we've got a great program for you as we take a look back at 250 years of Botetourt County natural resources. There's a ton to unpack here, so let's get started. We kick things off with WDBJ7's chief meteorologist, Justin Povic. Justin, the number one topic in your weather department has to be the drought. We've seen the graphics up each day. Tell us a little bit about your perspective of what we're seeing right now.
We all know we're in the midst of a very significant drought, kind of the likes we haven't really seen in quite some time. But as we head our way down the road, fall, winter season, what we're watching closely is El Nino, and that's the warming of the Pacific waters, the equatorial waters out over the open Pacific. That can have a huge impact on the jet stream and also storm systems coming across the southern part of the United States. The hope is, as we see that El Nino develop and come to fruition by, say, November, December, January, the subtropical jet stream starts to activate. We start to see more moisture with our storm systems working their way from west to east across the country, from California toward the Gulf states. And then some of that moisture gets flung northeastbound back into the mid-Atlantic and, back into our hometown. So we need to see a lot of rain. We're talking about, a solid foot or so to kind of wipe this drought out. And it's not going to happen all at once. Droughts don't come on suddenly and they don't end suddenly. But I think as we work our way toward the fall and winter season, we do have some opportunities to see several rounds of beneficial rain. Hopefully that will at least put a big dent in what we're at right now.
Well, Justin, I'm sure that the farmers will very much appreciate that phrase you just threw at us where the moisture is going to be flung at them. They'll take good care of that moisture when it gets in here.
Oh, yeah. I definitely welcome all the rain that we could see. In the summertime, it's kind of one extreme to the other. You can have a lot of rain in one spot, no rain in the other spot, and what falls, tends to run off. It's not readily absorbed into the ground. What you need are those soaking rains with the storm systems working their way through, and hopefully we can get into more of a pattern, a repetitive pattern where we see those opportunities here later this year.
Cutting hay or the lack of hay, the number one conversation, I think, among farmers right now. We wanted to speak with James Firebaugh, who is a retired firefighter and a long-time Botetourt cattle farmer, and get his perspective.
This drought has lasted longer than most of them that I can remember. Everybody's crop production is down. People are unloading livestock. Most people in this area are already feeding what they do have, like 2 months early, at least. They're already low on forage, so I look for a lot of people in our area to unload their livestock.
What does that mean to the cost of things and to the availability of things?
On the beef market side, I don't think you'll see much difference in the grocery store. It'll be on the producer side where prices will fall, but with everything else so high, and the cattle herd in this country is so small right now, I don't think it's going to affect much on the retail side. But as far as crop raising, everybody with their inputs, fertilizer so high, fuel so high, and they've already spent a bunch of money for a crop they were counting on that's not going to make it. And then the other thing people don't realize is when it's dry like this, you have more equipment maintenance because the dust in the fields just makes for more maintenance on your equipment, which adds to the cost too.
So you said you think they're happening more frequently. Are they longer? Are they more impactful? Or is it just this cumulative effect of year after year that these things are happening?
I think it's a lot of a cumulative effect. 2008, we got pretty dry back in the summer. It seemed to not last. This has been going on for 9 months now. I don't remember that one lasting that long.
The irony, of course, is that it's pouring rain as we record this, so.
Well, it is here.
Do you sometimes wonder about if farming is going in the right direction when there's all these challenges, and the challenges have always been there, like we said, but they seem to be stronger, more expensive, that sort of thing? Or is this just the cycle that we go through, and you're going to have a couple great years coming up and everybody will forget?
Well, part of it I think is just a cycle, but you have to be willing, and you have to be financially able to ride it out to get to the other side. And farmers are the most optimistic people in the world, I think, because you don't ever know what's going to happen.
Appreciate the thoughts of James Firebaugh, and we also appreciate the thoughts of Chuck Miller. He's got a big old garden called the Garden of Grace growing, we hope. Chuck, it's been a little while since we had a chance to check in. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is we haven't had a lot of rain.
Duh.
Yeah. But, the garden's doing great, and I'll tell you why. We shifted to drip irrigation probably 5 years ago. And that is a super efficient way of watering the garden, so we're not as reliant, although we want rain for sure, but we're still able to get the water and nutrients to plants that are really needing it. So the plants are looking great, and there's not as many weeds as there was last year. So I think it's going good. We're starting to harvest squash. That began this week. We won't have a red tomato before the 4th of July, but we'll have plenty of them after. So it's doing really, really good.
So the unintended consequence of the drought is that the weed production was lowered because it didn't have anything to work with.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And I am thankful for that, because last year, if you remember, it was like soggy and weird and then humid, and we fought weeds and we fought bugs, and they all won.
Tara, is that true? The bugs always win, is that right?
Last year it was rough with the bugs. I think the squash bugs were unreal, and the lanternflies were pretty out of control. But so you haven't seen any pest issues this year?
Not yet. I've seen a couple Japanese beetles, but no squash bugs and no lanternflies at all.
Which is good news.
That is good news.
That made the headlines for quite a while. Well, folks, I think it's time to get to our very, very special guest who's joining us today. Many of you in the Botetourt area and in the surrounding region know Ed McCoy. He's worn many hats over the years, between being an author, a retired editor for the Fincastle Herald, which is how I got to know him. He's also a shooting instructor at the Preserve in Botetourt County, and most importantly for today's conversation, he's a Botetourt historian, and we're grateful to have him with us today. So, Tara, would you welcome our guest?
Yeah. Ed and I have known each other for years now. He is just a repository of information and knowledge, especially when it comes to the history of Botetourt County, and gave a fantastic talk at the, what was that called? Harvesting Heritage?
Harvesting History.
Yeah.
I think it's what it was, yeah.
Now, are you guys focusing on the history of what the people have been doing in the county?
Generally, I mean, when you're looking at the county's agricultural history, it starts with the first folks who started to settle here. And there was really an interesting evolution, I think, of how agriculture changed and how it changed with some of the things that happened ecologically and some of the things that happened with markets and with ingenuity amongst the population.
Yes, very much so. But the people had to choose this area for a reason. I mean, some of it was out of necessity because everything else was settled to the I guess, the east and the north, and everything was already taken. But they still had to choose this region because it had something natural resource-wise, right?
Yeah, as folks primarily came to Botetourt, or what's now Botetourt, they came up the valley from Pennsylvania. A few came through the passes from the east, but primarily Scot-Irish and German settlers who had come over for various reasons, and some recruited, as a matter of fact, to come and help settle this area because of the land speculators who wound up being able to provide the land and meet the obligations they had to get the land grants.
Was there anything that was different about the way that this land laid, though, as well, that may have been appealing?
I think the idea of having the James River certainly is an important component of it, because that eventually provided a way to move things to market more readily than just over what were the lack of pretty much roads at the time, until those were able to improve. I call it the Fincastle Valley. It's the area. It could be the James River Valley, but because of the nature of the way our water flow is here, there's a divide that kind of runs through the area of Troutville. So you've got the Roanoke River Basin that's to the in the more southern part of the county, and then you've got the James River Water Basin that's in the more northern part of the county. But the whole valley itself, I call the Fincastle Valley, because if you look at it at the geography, we're surrounded by mountains, and that Fincastle Valley is great agricultural land and has been for generations. Yeah.
So you would then say that the James River was probably one of the primary reasons that this place was so special.
The James River and its tributaries, also the Roanoke River tributaries.
I'm curious, you talked about where people came from and they settled in this area, and how did they determine if they were going to be involved in agriculture? How did they determine what they were going to do?
Most of the immigrants at the time came from Ireland. They were the Scotch-Irish, and this goes back to European history with the Scots, and they got kicked over into Ireland, some of them, and then there were issues there. A lot of them were Presbyterians, and they were looking for a way out of the Anglican Church that was the official church of England, and some of them were actually recruited to come here with the promise of land, and they did, and thousands of them. And at first, they settled out through Pennsylvania, Maryland, and then came up the valley, the Shenandoah Valley, or the Valley of Virginia, or the Great Valley, as it's been called. And as they progressed further to the southwest, down the valley, they would branch off into the geographic areas where it was easier for them to be able to settle, and that included whatever major creek or river that kind of fed into the Potomac or the Shenandoah or the James. That allowed for them to be able to find fertile land, level land, and of course the Valley of Virginia had been predominantly hunting grounds, but there was a lot of open area as well for the Native Americans. And most of them tended to come to the Shenandoah Valley for hunting and that sort of thing. There wasn't a lot of long-term Native American settlements here, but there were a lot of Native Americans who used the area. And they came from different parts. They came out of the south, they came from the west, they came from the north, they came from the east. And so it was a real crossroads of Native American groups. People came for the freedom, for the chance to own land, and once they were here, they had a lot of independence. The further southwest they came, the further away they got from government, and until they realized, well, then we need to have government as well. So counties started forming here, and then other counties broke off, and others, as there were more and more people. Still had to do the courthouse thing, still had to pay taxes, all of that sort of thing. But there was an independence that came with also owning land.
I'm still curious, going back to, there are a lot of Native Americans in this area, but not a lot of Native American settlements, but they would come through here kind of transient just to hunt and come back for those hunting traditions during those certain seasons. Why do you think they didn't choose to settle here if we had such a great river system and such fertile land in those valleys?
Well, there were some settlements, and primarily it looked like, I think, what they call the woodland period. A big settlement is at Bessemer, which is up next to Eagle Rock, right on the James River. Another was over in just south of Buchanan, essentially where the area around Limestone Park, where folks might be familiar with, and then across the creek, across Mill Creek. Those, and then there were smaller settlements as well. It's just they weren't long-term permanent settlements. There's indications that the Bessemer site may have been used by different groups of Native Americans. Okay. And you also had conflicts between them, between the different tribes as well. Actually, the first, or I suppose one of the first conflicts among Native Americans and settlers here happened in 1742 when the McDowells had settled up at Fairfield in what's now Rockbridge County, and a number of other settlers in that area, and a group of Native American Delaware came up the valley from the north on their way to North Carolina because they were going down to have what I would call a bar brawl with the Catawbas. And anyway, there was apparently some misunderstandings, and the settlers wound up catching up with them because they were bothering some of the folks, maybe stealing a cow or two, who had settled on the South River, and they caught up with them down near Glasgow and had a little skirmish. John McDowell was killed. He was a militia captain or whatever at the time, and a couple of Native Americans, blah blah blah. The Native Americans headed back north. There had been a treaty that was established that supposedly a misunderstanding about what the dividing line was, about where the Native Americans could be and where settlers could be.
Is this that Iroquois one?
That's part of the Iroquois Nation.
Okay.
Yeah. Six nations.
Okay.
Yeah, and but at any rate, it wound up being it led to another treaty, and what it did, it moved that dividing line between settlements that the Native Americans had believed was the Blue Ridge, no settlements west of the Blue Ridge by the settlers, and no conflicts. The Native Americans would stay over on this side of the Blue Ridge. Shenandoah Valley was kind of like a little bit of a no man's land. You could travel it and everything, but you weren't supposed to settle there. But we were settling there. The next treaty was moved that dividing line further to the west into the Alleghenies, and of course that didn't help either as far as the settlements were concerned, and that led to continued conflicts that lasted on up even into the Revolution.
So how do you think our value of the rivers has changed over time? Clearly we were using it as fertile bottomland, and I'm assuming drinking water. Back in the day, this would have been something vital.
Probably so.
Transportation, the fact that we could get stuff up to Richmond, I would think would have been huge.
It became a key transportation artery early on, so early that George Washington was a real advocate for canals, and he saw the James River and Kanawha Canal as a real opportunity as part of the nation's manifest destiny, even before it was a terminology.
Chuck, I knew when we invited Ed here, we would be sitting here just transfixed by some of the dates and the times and how he is gluing everything together for us. What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm thinking it's fabulous, and I wish I had that ability to remember dates and times and stuff. But I do have a question for you. When you think about people that came to this area, and this area specifically, is it fair to say that maybe water was the biggest resource draw?
I don't know if it was the biggest resource draw. I think it provided the kind of opportunities for the commercial activities, which agriculture was a huge commercial activity, over a period of time in the early 1800s, 1820s or so, the area was just became a real manufacturing area, if you will, involving iron ore and iron furnaces. And those became a critical part of the industry here, of in hiring people, providing labor or providing opportunities for labor. It was a gradual increase, but there's a guy, Talo, whose family had iron furnaces up in the northern part of the state, up in near the Potomac River and everything. But he could see, the one Talo, he could see that this was a great area in order to be able to expand that. And he came here, wound up buying a small furnace that had belonged to Robert Harvey, and just literally across the ridge up here had what became Martha's furnace. And that was one of the first ones. That attracted other opportunities, so that by the mid 1820s, 30s, in that area, there were maybe as many as a dozen iron furnaces operating here.
We never got a Martha's Vineyard, but at least we got Martha's Furnace down here.
Yeah.
So we could get shirts with that destination. Now, what you said about this guy up in Potomac, by the Potomac River up north. So he had iron furnaces up there?
Yes.
And was the Potomac then a big part of that? Because you mentioned that, and all our furnaces down here next to the James.
I'm sure the Potomac was probably a way in order to transport.
Okay.
And that's where the James River came into play, to be able to, they would make pig iron, and then they needed a way to transport it. We put it on a wagon and get it to a creek. This is one of the things that makes Craig Creek a navigable waterway, and that opens all sorts of challenges or lack thereof in today's world. But they would float pig iron down Catawba Creek out of the Grace Furnace, and then eventually Roaring Run Furnace, which came later, and float that down Craig Creek into the James River, and then down the James River as far as it needed to go.
Now, we've mentioned, I'm just wondering when this other trend, this switch happened, because now we're talking about the river as transportation, then we had the road as transportation, and then the railroads, and then we have 81. So just going back to the river again, then now it's kind of conservation, huge, recreation, massive. I mean, we have the whole entire Upper James River Trail. I mean, VPR promotes the hell out of it. It's our identity, essentially, right? When did that kind of recreation, conservation when did we start seeing a shift to that?
So if you were on the James River 40 years ago, and you decided you were going to fish or float, you probably weren't going to eat anything you caught. The Clean Water Act, which we're concerned about challenges to that now, started the cleanup. Okay. And some mill ownership, I think, changes, and then just the notion of, golly gee, what are we doing to this waterway? And investments that really improved the quality of the water with industry through the Clean Water Act, or at least because of that. So I'm supposing maybe 25, 30 years ago, you can really start to see a change. Yeah. So then now today, when you look down into the river bottom, you see these different colored rocks. Mm-hmm. It's really, really fairly clean, although there's still some challenges. I mean, a few years ago, there was a challenge with some nutrients that got into the river and we had a fish kill in Botetourt. Mm-hmm. And it was, traced back, they think, maybe to too much chicken litter being placed for fertilizer purposes and the runoff from that. But I don't know if there was ever a conclusion to it, but there was a lot of study of it, water sampling and everything. And over the course of a couple of years, it eventually seemed to resolve itself. And the All of that was taking place upriver from Botetourt.
Oh, okay.
So, but if what you did on your land with a small stream, that stream would run into a bigger stream, and then eventually it'd wind up in the river.
Right.
So, there was a lot of concern about that. The Department of Wildlife Resources, put a lot of effort into it. The DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, seems to have resolved itself.
Because it's a scenic river now.
It was a scenic river. It was established as a scenic river. The section in Botetourt, 16 miles of it, back in probably, it was late 80s, I guess, 85, 86, 87, somewhere in there.
I don't have a question as much as just a thought that occurred in my mind. I was listening to you talk about the industry having an effect on the James River, and now you can see the rocks and things like that. And my thought in my head was, I wonder if we have worked to clean that up, or we have stopped abusing it.
Oh gosh, I think it's a combination. Yeah. There's still junk that gets thrown in the river. Every year, Twin River Outfitters in Buchanan puts together a tire collection drive on the river. And they'll, you go and, take our boats, take our canoes, whatever, bring your own. We're picking up tires this day. And then they'll bring them down, and they'll have a dumpster type thing, big old thing to throw them in to get rid of them as a normal yearly river cleanup.
When is that?
Huh?
When is that?
Generally in the fall, I think is when it is. September, something like that.
I got 420 tires that I need to
Don't throw them in the river.
Okay. Good to
Yeah,
know.
it's they do this as a annual kind of. They want to keep it clean too, and but people do stuff like that, and you wonder why. Why would they do that? Why would you throw a tire in the river? Why would you throw a piece of junk? Why would you throw trash out along the road?
I really have enjoyed listening to you. I hear water all throughout our conversation and resources, and water is a hot topic, whether it's data center or whether it's drought or whatever it is. It's on everyone's tongue at this point in time. Now think about resources. And resources are, if you look it up, there's different types of resources. We're talking natural resources, and it's spelled out in a definition that has something to say that whatever we could utilize it for our wants or our needs. And I think we've not been shy on doing that as people that have inhabited this earth for years and years. If you go far enough back, this wouldn't have been called resources, they're called gifts. They're gifts to us. And we've been charged as humanity, as however we label ourselves, we're the caretakers. And we are to care for God's creation. And, it's just really interesting to listen to these gifts that were given to us. And I don't know why, but I think it feels more like we're in tune more with looking at these gifts or these resources and getting to the stage where we're like, we need to do a better job, and we've been doing a better job. I think sometimes, and this is just my thought and my perspective, sometimes we get so tunnel focused on one piece of something going on that we forget how wonderfully gifted we are with the things that we couldn't make to start with.
Once again, Tara, Chuck, you know what we've done? We've barely scratched the surface of a really important topic. And to have Ed here to kind of crack open the box and show us what was inside for all these many years, I'm very grateful that he could spend the time with us. And we very much appreciate you being here today. And we're probably going to invite you back again somewhere down the road, because there's so much to discuss about Botetourt, about the natural resources, and the role that you're playing with it and the people around you. So we thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It's fun for me. Y'all can tell I like to talk.
All right, so once again, thanks to everybody that joined us today. We're going to be taking August off. We're going to tend to some farming issues, and we're going to try to recharge a little bit. So our next episode will drop in September, and you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you have a great summer. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Forgotten Fields Project. Remember, your likes, downloads, subscriptions, and shares help the podcast grow. Do you have a topic you would like us to explore or a question about our farming community? Simply head to our website, ForgottenFieldsProject.com, and leave us your comment, or reach out to us at info@ForgottenFieldsProject.com. The executive producer is Teresa Reed. Tara Williamson and meteorologist Robin Reed are your hosts. We hope you will join us again next time as we explore more trends in agriculture. And we invite you to explore past episodes wherever you get your podcasts.